Hi, in this video we will again look at what happened last week and what to watch out for this week. Let's start in the usual way right away with the SPX, where we see that we are in such a beautiful ascending triangle roughly. And if we look, we can say that perhaps we made a new peak regarding the height last week, that is on Friday. And the big question is where to go from here. But basically, what is worth seeing right away, in my opinion, is that last week worse inflation data came out. Right, both the consumer price index and the producer price index were slightly worse than expected. They knocked the market down. This happened on Wednesday and they took it back. So it's as if the market is now completely shaking off this inflation information, because if we look at Forex Factory, then regarding last week, we see that the CPI was worse. Obviously, this was worse, and this data was also worse than expected. And then the PPI, this was on Wednesday, and then on Thursday, the PPI, it also got a bit worse with 0 to 4 and 2 to 17. Oh no, this one was better. So it was only this one data point that got worse, and practically despite this, the market was bought up extensively. So Thursday's data is also worse for the PPI. Wednesday was also worse data, and yet they bought the market. So this is information that the market shrugged off. Based on this, we obviously cannot know the future, but it's interesting information that the market did not really react to it. Recently, there was in connection with the tariff, we were down, then there was DeepSeek, but they pulled back on all of them for now. And we are looking around here near the new peak. Now, let's take a look at the gag levels. Out of curiosity, right here, there is a 6,150, 6,200 here in the SPX on the 0321 expiration. And the high volatility level, this blue line, shows where the gag profile practically turns negative, and well, it's around 6,060. So from there it could even lead to a faster drop if it turns, but we'll see that later this week. So this is how we look in SPX. In NDX it's practically very similar. I can even delete this because these no longer exist. The view is very similar because we are close to the new peak. Or maybe we've even made a new peak. We see the same thing. It shrugged off the more negative CPI and PPI data. And as if there were no tomorrow, they practically bought everything up. Regarding the Russell 2000, well, if we look at the weekly, there was roughly a sideways move. Not much happened. And it's important to mention something I forgot at the beginning of the video, that today, on February 17th, Monday, America is closed. Because it is closed due to a holiday, so there will be no trading. Despite this, as we see, the S&P futures is still going, since futures never really close, only on weekends. Now let's look at what happened with the dollar index. The dollar index was able to fall despite the fact that basically the CPI and the PPI worsened. Now, if the CPI and the PPI worsened, that means that further that period from the Fed during which it will not lower interest rates. Now here we see the interest rate cut expectations for March 19th. The market still prices it very low with a 2.5% chance that they cut the rate. Now if they don't cut the rate, it means that the dollar's interest rate remains high in quotes, remains at a high level. So despite this, the dollar was able to fall. And when does the dollar usually fall? Well, when there is an absolute risk-on mode in the market, meaning when everything is being bought up a lot, then the dollar can fall. Well, we see this now, and saying for how long, that's obviously another good question. As for gold, we hit a new peak essentially on Tuesday, February 11th. And then we tested it on Friday, February 14th. And now this is where we stand. Obviously, this is still open because this is a futures product. So it is not closed today. Here you can see that this is Monday's data. As for crypto, there was a large sideways movement, basically an absolutely narrowed movement in everything. BTC USD, RTH USD, they haven't moved in any direction. As for the oil, there was a spike and then it was given back. So basically a neutral movement occurred. The VGK, which we haven't seen in a long time, this European LTF, well, that also was drastically pulled back since January 10th, and we are close to such a peak here. As for KWEB, a beautiful jump happened on Friday. This is the Chinese technology LTF, and we are quite close to the peak here. And while we're at it, it's worth taking a look at BABA too. which was quite brutal over this recent period. Basically, since the DeepSeek news came out, we've essentially gone from 80 to 120, making a 50% move. And you can obviously see this rise in the Chinese market in the FXI as well. Since we had such a nicely rising market, the VIX was also able to decrease a bit. We are now looking at the VIX levels below 15. Let's look at some stocks. Netflix is at a new peak. It's astounding that we're now above 1,000, and not so long ago Netflix was still at 160, right? In May 2022 it was 160, now 1,058. There was a nice little rebound in Macron. There was a drop on Wednesday due to the CPI news, and then it was beautifully recovered, almost filling this gap. The SMH semiconductor ETF also managed to rise nicely. And then let's take a look at the tech sector stocks. Apple performed beautifully all week as we almost reached the previous peak here. There was a minor slip in Amazon, sideways movement, a drop. Microsoft was able to fall. And here we've reached this level again. If we look, it's been eyeing this level for a very long time. We did dip a bit below, but it was regained. So for now, it seems strong. Then the question is how much, whether we can break below it. Let's perhaps look at the GEC levels. We have a level at 405 and another at 402. If the high volatility level, that is 402.5, falls, then the decline may actually accelerate from there. Let's look at Nvidia, which had a brutally impressive week. There is a resistance GEC level at 140. The 123 high volatility level is quite far. And as we see, it almost filled this GEP here. If we look at Meta, it is basically unstoppable, hitting new highs again, making new highs for weeks. If we look at this on the weekly chart, then it's very intense. I mean, for a very long time here, it's just breaking new records repeatedly. So the question is, where will it stop here? Google, well, couldn't do much with itself. It was basically sideways and down. If we look at the GEC level, then we are really eyeing the high volatility level, the HVLS line. If we go below it, then the next support level, our put support level, is 180, then 175. And as for Tesla, well, essentially, if we look at the V-clip, it is a big doji. You see, we dipped, it was bought back, and we're moving sideways around the high volatility level. Now let's see what is expected this week from the Forex factory site. If we go to for the current week, we see that Trump will speak on Tuesday, which is always a pretty high risk event. We know that anything Trump says can be market moving. There will be a FOMC meeting minutes, so something might be revealed that hasn't been mentioned yet, although I don't think there will be any big surprises. There will be unemployment claims, and if this is much harsher, it could jolt the market. On Friday, there will be flash manufacturing PMI and services PMI, so these will be the roughly market-moving data. And let's see what quick reports are expected this week. What may be interesting from a Chinese perspective is Baidu, and Occidental Petroleum is related to the oil market. Then on Thursday, another Chinese one, Alibaba, will be releasing an earnings report. There will also be Walmart, but essentially we know that the majority of the earnings report season is already behind us. The rest are uninteresting for me. These will be the more important earnings reports this week. So briefly, that's all I wanted to say about the week. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you for your attention. Bye.